Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Pizza Buffet live here on the Forward Progress YouTube channel, part of the Hammer Betting Network and powered by Pinnacle Sportsbook. I'm Rob Pizzola. I'm here with you for the next hour, breaking down today's NFL sides and totals. I do have the London game up in front of me right here with the Jacksonville Jaguars, a big 3rd and 3 coming up with 17 seconds left in the first half here. First and foremost, want to wish a happy Thanksgiving to all of my fellow Canadians out there, whether you celebrate today, yesterday, tomorrow. Happy Thanksgiving to all of you. Hope you enjoy it with your families. Obviously, just a great day to get together with the people that you love, enjoy good food, possibly watch some football. So happy Thanksgiving to everyone out there that is celebrating. Secondly, in the interest of full transparency, I'm not going to have a lot of plays right now. I think the market is pretty tight on 3/4 of these games. I'm still going to give my thoughts on every single game, my leans, what I would play in like pick'em pools and stuff like that, as a pretty big sack there that Trevor Lawrence takes. I would emphasize trying to bet earlier in the week as much as humanly possible. And we have tons of content here on Forward Progress that'll help you do that. 8 p.m. Eastern time tonight. It's myself and Clive Bixby. We always take a look at the opening numbers at Pinnacle on a weekly basis, try to predict where they're going to go over the course of the week. We do a pretty damn good job with that. If you just bet the stuff that we think is going to move, pretty good closing line value. We obviously have a ton of other content here on Forward Progress over the course of the week. So make sure you're subscribed. Hit that subscribe button below and turn on that notification bell. As a general reminder, I often preach line shopping here on Forward Progress. It is one of the most critical aspects to sports betting. I would never consider betting without Pinnacle being one of my sports books because of their everyday competitive odds. You will see it up on screen over the course of this show, and you'll say, hey, Pinnacle has a way better number than the one that I just bet this morning, or whatever. Competitive odds. It's extremely important. Bet smart, bet Pinnacle, your trusted sportsbook for the past 25 years, and use code HAMMER when signing up at Pinnacle, as it does help support myself and the show and the Hammer. You must be 19 plus. Available in Ontario, not available in the US. And as always, I cannot stress it enough. Please play responsibly. All right, let's get into it, everyone. Before I do, see all of you in the comments already, a lot of the usual suspects. I'm pretty good on injuries today, but if we get anything that's late breaking, you can throw it in the comments, and I will talk about it as we go on. Just a random thing from Fries here. Jags look so good up tempo. I feel like the Jags have wasted just like too many third downs today on some dumb running plays when the offense has just been cooking in the passing game. Now, obviously, the turnover there is a big one at the end of the half, but feels like a game where the Jags should be leading a lot more than 11-7 right now. And that's kind of been the case with the Jags a lot this year. So it'll be interesting to see what it looks like in the second half. A little bit of an inside joke here, but yes, 97% chance to win on the Bills. Not looking so great right now. All right, let's get into it. I'm going to bring up betstamp on screen and give it a quick refresh here to get the latest odds on every single game. As a reminder, the easiest way to improve as a sports bettor, use multiple sports books. Always get the best odds. I highly recommend using an odds comparison tool like Betstamp. I'm part of the ownership team, but we compare odds across every sports book for games, futures, player props. Save time, save money. Check Betstamp before you bet. You can download the app today on Android or iOS. You can check it out on the web at betstamp.app. Let's get right into it. Houston Texans and the Atlanta Falcons. So lots of back and forth on this game, and that's been the case for a lot of games this week, which I kind of want to break down. Actually, before I even just talk about this game in particular, one thing specifically about this week, I'm pretty in tune with like what other people are betting. Not like everything that they're betting, but I generally have an idea of like, oh, someone released a play on this side or that side or whatever. There's been a lot of back and forth this week, a lot of mixed opinions, even amongst people that like are close in my tight-knit community where Maybe Suma, for example, likes one side of a game. I like a different side of the game. If you look at forward progress from the Wednesday Best Bet show, there was a little bit of a disagreement specifically on this game as well. So Houston takes all the early money leading up to game day. We've seen some money come back in on the Atlanta Falcons. Now, Atlanta's injury report, nothing. Troy Anderson's on IR. Aside from that, like clean. You look at Houston's injury report, and it's much worse, but things are getting better this week with the return of Titus Howard at right tackle and Laramie Tunsil at left tackle. On the defensive side of the ball, looks like Malik Collins expected to play as well. So not as bad as it possibly could have been. Shaq Griffin got 2 limited practices in. He's expected to play as well. But this is obviously very important for a quarterback like CJ Stroud. CJ Stroud nothing short of like a shit show in terms of the personnel so far this season and the amount of injuries that they've had. But if you look at CJ Stroud on dropbacks where he hasn't been pressured, he's 3rd in passer rating. He's 2nd in EPA per dropback. He's 1st in yards per completion, 14.1. That's via True Media. So whenever he's had time, no pressure, he's basically cooked opposing defenses. Now, last week, there was a very strong game plan from Houston to work in the screen game, get the ball out of his hands very quickly, and that excelled. Can you do that on a weekly basis? I'm not sure. Teams start to watch tape. They start to take away the short stuff. I'm not convinced that's going to continue. However, you do get your tackles back. That's a big deal. The Atlanta defense, Sharp Clark pointed it out this week, but if you look at the Atlanta defense, they faced Bryce Young at home, his first career game as a rookie. They faced the Packers. They were getting beaten in that game until late. And if you remember the Packers in that game, O-line injuries, Christian Watson out, Aaron Jones out. Then they faced the Detroit Lions, and the Detroit Lions had cluster injuries on their offensive line. Last week, they faced the Jags. The Jags ended up with 3 healthy wide receivers by the end of that game last week. So there's a very high possibility that Atlanta is a little bit overrated on the defensive side of the ball right now. I do think that Houston has a pretty good chance in these conditions to be able to move the ball, especially with the welcoming back offensive linemen. It's a matter of what do we think of the Atlanta offense? Well, Atlanta's offense will struggle in games where they can't run the ball because their quarterback is a sieve and he can't do anything. Desmond Ridder just cannot throw the ball downfield. He's arguably the worst quarterback in the league, and that's even like including Zach Wilson. Zach Wilson at least put in a good game last week. But when the Falcons can run the ball, they will have success. And the Houston Texans, as much as the defense is fine, they're ranking 20th in yards per carry allowed this year. They're pretty low in terms of success rate as well. This is a team that Atlanta can follow their game script on. You know, Arthur Smith wants to run the ball, but so far, the Houston defensive metrics against the run this season do not match what they were a year ago. Personally, I make this game closer. So like strong lean Houston, almost like borderline playable right now. I would need a little bit more of a tick towards the Atlanta Falcons, which we might come back to here. No strong opinion on the total. But for me, at the end of the day, it comes down to the fact that I just trust Houston's offense a lot more right now. It's incredibly challenging with like this Falcons offense that just wants to run the ball, doesn't really have like a downfield threat at the moment with Ridder. It's Houston or nothing. And forget about what the look ahead line is. Forget about what we thought about these teams before the season. I don't want to say forget about it. Like there's still that semblance of Houston can turn into a pumpkin again. Atlanta might be, that better than the team that they've shown so far. Who knows? You maybe get a Taylor Heineke coming into the game or something like that. But ultimately, I trust Houston a lot more right now. Game number 2, Carolina and Detroit. And this is a great comment, by the way. Life is too short to bet on Desmond Ridder. Really, you have to have a buy point on any team in any game, or else what's the point of betting or creating numbers? But it's just, I'm going to have to see something out of Atlanta's offense at some point. Carolina and Detroit. Carolina, obviously, still dealing with injuries in the secondary. J.C. Horn, I think, is eligible to return next week. Shaq Thompson's on IR. Xavier Woods is out again this week. Dante Jackson, I think, is expected to play. That's one I want to keep an eye on, but he did get in a full practice on Friday. We've seen a little bit of money overnight on Carolina in this game, and then we saw Detroit take a little bit about 10 minutes before I came on air today. That Pinnacle price at the top of your screen there, the plus 10 minus 120 towards Carolina. It's more like an 8.5, 9 number. That's like just juiced that way. Detroit, on the other hand, those are the injuries that we've been talking about this week. This is why the number kind of got bet down yesterday. Amon-Ra St. Brown out for this week. Jahmyr Gibbs is out for this week. They have injuries in the secondary. Obviously, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson is on IR. Now, they do get some help back. Oh, Brian Branch, of course. I forgot about Brian Branch. Big loss for them there. Emmanuel Mosley's making his season debut. He's coming off an ACL injury. Typically takes some players time to get back into the groove of things there, but that'll help in the long run, as will Kirby Joseph returning. My number in the game is like slightly leaning to Carolina right now, and no opinion on the total. And that's purely because of the injuries that the Lions are facing going into today. But Carolina is bad. Like Bryce Young, I don't want to get into like, okay, the Bryce Young can never succeed type of things. There's a lot of things that are working against Bryce Young in this game. His offensive line, the lack of weapons relative to other teams in the league, especially to these other rookie quarterbacks. But Bryce Young has led one touchdown drive this year that has been in non-garbage time. One. 33rd in EPA per dropback, 31st in success rate amongst quarterbacks. He's terrible. You look at where his targets are going. 31% of his targets are at or behind the line of scrimmage. That's the most in the entire league. In passes beyond the line of scrimmage, he's dead last in yards per attempt, and he's 32nd in passer rating. It's been horrible. Horrible. The Lions' defense has been very good, with the exception of the Seahawks game. But overall, metrics have been good. They're 8th in EPA. They've played KC and Seattle in that stretch. When you look at when they've went up against, I don't want to say similar quarterbacks, but let's say quarterbacks that don't have like the pizzazz of Patrick Mahomes and Geno Smith. When they went up against Desmond Ridder and Jordan Love, the defense held up very well in those games. But what's most important for me is the Lions are generating pressure at the 3rd highest rate in the NFL right now. And they blitz the 3rd lowest percentage of the time. The pass rush is getting home. It's big for them. I just don't see the opportunity for success for the Carolina offense. I think there's a very wide range of what this can be. You obviously have to account for the injuries that Detroit is facing. Skill position players, ultimately, Brian Branch, big deal on the defense. But I don't know what the ceiling is for Carolina's offense. I cannot pull the trigger on them. I'm accounting for all the stuff in this game, and I think that there's, like I said, a lot of things that could possibly happen. You take away a guy like St. Brown, a dynamic weapon like that, and who, like, the offense could collapse just by the removal of one player. We've seen it happen before with many different teams, but the likelihood that Detroit's O-line is able to hold up in this game, extremely high. I don't know. It's not something that is in play for me. And over the course of the rest of this show, I doubt we're going to see a market move that makes this playable one way or another. Game number 3, Titans and the Colts. One-way action on the Titans this week, all the way up to -2.5 across the board right now. You see pretty much every sports book in market hanging the same price, 2.5, total 43.5. I'm very close to a play on Indy here. So the Tennessee move basically boiled down to injury report this week. You get some positive news. Peter Skoronski returning. I think it was from appendicitis or an abdomen injury for Tennessee. A little bit of help for their offensive line. For the Colts, they do get Ryan Kelly, their center, back from a concussion. Their left tackle, Bernard Raymond, is still out. They get Jonathan Taylor returning from the ankle injury. But the big news is on defense, where Kwity Paye and Shaq Leonard are both out this week with a concussion and a groin injury, respectively. And we saw the market move on that. And there was other situations. DeForest Buckner wasn't practicing. Taquan Lewis was limited. Those guys are playing this week. But if you look at in the past, with Shaq Leonard off the field, the Colts have struggled to stop the run. Now, Shaq Leonard's not the same player anymore. In my opinion, he was having a pretty poor year. He's been very lackluster in pretty much every aspect of the game this season. That comes across both from a metric standpoint and also in watching the game film. With that said, there's still opportunity for Tennessee to run the ball. You know, a lot of Derrick Henry, in my opinion, and they're really going to test this Colts offensive front that's missing 2 of their 7 starters. If you look at the defense this year, it's already lacking talent. You take away some key players. I understand the move towards Tennessee. I'm of the opinion that we've gone a little bit too far at this point. Just a little bit too far. It's not quite in my price point at the moment to bet either side of the game, but Colts either on the spread or money line is very close to a lean. Talk about a few other things in this game. Colts, in terms of like their rushing game this year, it's been non-existent. 26th in rushing success rate, just 32%. If you look at over the past 2 years, with Jonathan Taylor in the mix, it's been much higher. 10th overall in success rate at 41%. Not just Jonathan Taylor, offensive line matters as well. The thing with me in this game, and why I think Dead Game in the chat says Titans Colts over 43.5 is a banger. I don't disagree. I disagree. I don't think it's a banger, but it's the only way I could look in terms of total, because you have a coach of the Indianapolis Colts and Shane Steichen, who is very analytically driven, very matchup exploitative, I should say. You look at when Shane Steichen was the OC for the Philadelphia Eagles last year, when they played the Tennessee Titans. Well, the Tennessee Titans have like a very large dichotomy on defense. They stop the run really well. They can't defend the pass. And there's some stupid teams that just for some reason they try to like establish the run on whatever. Last year, Jalen Hurts in that Eagles-Titans game passed more than any other game that he played the entire season. And I know Jonathan Taylor is back. It'll be very interesting to see in the early going what the game plan is. But Anthony Richardson can pass on this defense, because everyone can pretty much pass on this defense. If they come out and throw with that type of game plan, I think the over is very much in play. Probably will look to back something in the live market immediately. The concern is Tennessee, when leading, if they do get out to a lead, just running the ball incessantly. This is what they've done for years with Derrick Henry. This is why they've played so many unders with Tannehill on the road. I'm not like a big trends guy. I'm just trying to explain why over the course of years it's been very profitable to play these Tennessee unders. And it's because they try to ice games on the back of their running game. Nothing yet for me there. I might come back to this before the end of the game. And again, if you didn't catch the first 5 minutes of the stream today, we're definitely going to have less plays than usual as I go through the board here. Quick drink of water as I bring up the market for Dolphins and Giants. Bills' offense has been horrible today, too. Jags' defense sneaky underrated right now. I thought they were going to be terrible going into the year. And they've performed pretty admirably. That was an interesting blitz they sent there as well. All right. Giants and Dolphins. Giants are a disaster. No Andrew Thomas again. Had the setback with his hamstring. You're now missing your right guard, Shane Lemieux. Your center, John Michael Schmitz. Offensive line is terrible. Saquon Barkley not expected to play. it's just rough for them in terms of offensive weapons. On the other side of things with Miami, Teron Armstead goes on IR. Seems like he's suffering like the same fate as David Bakhtiari, where it's just like it's a bonus when they have him in, but don't expect much of him. Connor Williams expected to play their center. He went 3 limited practices this week with a groin injury. I don't know about Jalen Phillips yet on defense. That'll be an interesting one to watch, although doesn't have such a big impact in this game, more so going forward for the Dolphins. And Deshaun Elliott's returning from a groin injury. Tua, pressured the most he's been all of the season last year against the Buffalo Bills. 32% of his dropbacks were pressures. He has very, very large splits when pressured versus not pressured. Now, granted, most quarterbacks in the league do, but he is 10.2 yards per dropback this season when he doesn't face a pressure. That's second in the NFL. When he does face a pressure, 4.8 yards per dropback. That's a big difference. It's the 8th largest drop in the NFL. Can the Giants get pressure? My gut instinct is no, because we just have not seen that from them so far. And unfortunately, to make matters worse for the Giants, they blitz a lot. They send a lot of pressure. They don't get home. That's like the Brian. This has like been the Wink Martindale style of defense. And Tua shreds the blitz. Partially because, well, mostly because his receivers can win on the outside. So it's pretty massive that Miami has all these skill position players. They do continue, like with big spreads, typically you want a team that's going to continue to like push the ball downfield. We saw this in the 70-20 win against Denver. At some point, they started going to the running game and still finding success. But this is not a team that takes their foot off the gas. The issue I have, and everything I've said so far, lends itself to predicting Miami is going to win. And they are. I think they very likely are. But I'm accounting for all of this. And you also have to account for the Miami Dolphins defense. And the Miami Dolphins defense is not very good. In fact, I would argue that it's bad. Dead last success rate in the NFL this year. 27th EPA per play. In game states where Miami gets out to the lead, they've been pretty horrible defensively. They got lucky that Denver turned the ball over a bunch in that game a few weeks back. But ultimately, I think Miami's going to score. And I don't think that their defense is necessarily going to be able to limit an opponent to next to nothing. So here's what we're going to do. I have to use the Pinnacle line. This is pretty much the exact same number, honestly. The difference between the half at this VIG. But I'm going to play over 48 minus 101 in this game for a standard unit. My number in this game is closer to 50, just under 50. I think that this edge is in and around like the 4% range. It's the biggest one I have on the board today. But if you're not into stuff like that, you could always go to game props and look at like Miami team total, which is in the 30.5 range right now. That's an option for other people out there, which I don't mind, but I'm sticking to major market sides and totals on this stream. That's what I've been doing for years. And I think there's going to be points in this game. I do. All right. Before I get to the next game, Fries points out that there's 300 plus viewers. Need more likes, guys. Smash that thumbs up. Thank you very much, Fries. Anyone, just take 2 seconds, please. If you're here and you've been watching for the first 24 minutes and you come back on a weekly basis and enjoy the broadcast, just hammer that like button down below. It helps people find our content, helps me continue to do this going forward. So please, really quickly, just take 2 seconds and smash that like button down below. Okay, let's move on to the next game here. Apologies for the lack of plays, but I got to deal with what's put in front of me. Saints and Patriots. Another game where we have like large injuries that have kind of affected this one way or another. Now, interestingly enough, looking at the board now, New England took overnight money, back to favorites in the minus 1.5 range. Total's very low, 38.5, 39. I may have come on this morning and had a small lean to New England. That's kind of gone now. Pretty strong lean to the under here, borderline playable. I'll get into that in a second as well. And I'll recap the entire board at the end. Potentially, we might end up with a few more plays. But Matthew Judon, Christian Gonzalez, big injuries on the New England defense. That might open things up for the Saints. But the problem I have is, it's kind of like one of those games where I wish they were playing anybody else. Not anybody else, but is New Orleans going to be the team that exploits that? Their offensive line is not very good. I think Andrus Peat is going to play today. I think he got a limited practice in on Friday. He's dealing with a concussion. I think he cleared. But Derek Carr does not have any time behind that line of scrimmage. They have no running game. Belichick is a solid defensive coordinator. Even when he doesn't have players, he somehow figures out a way to limit the explosive plays. And the Saints don't generate explosive plays. The last 2 weeks, they generated 6 explosive plays. That was tied for the fewest in the NFL over the last couple weeks. They go 3 and out 38% of the time. It's 25th in the NFL. They are offensively challenged. Now, you take Matthew Judon, who has 4 of the team's 10 sacks away, 18% pressure rate this year. That's top 15 in the NFL. Maybe the Saints have the opportunity to move the ball. But it was truly a pathetic performance last week. Derek Carr dealing with the AC joint injury. I don't know if he wasn't himself, wasn't healthy, but his average depth of completion a week ago was 0.3 yards. Alvin Kamara had 13 catches for 33 yards. It's just really hard to get behind the Saints right now. Opposite side of things, Saints defense. They play man. They play aggressive man. If you do not have wide receiver talent on the other side of the ball, you struggle against the Saints. The Bucs put up 24 against the Saints last week. It was like the highest output against New Orleans in a season and a half, basically. And that's because they have the receiving talent in Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. It matters. There's just no receiving talent here for New England. They're not capable of breaking away down the field. Paulson Adebo likely back for the Saints today as well. Helps the pass defense even more. I just really struggle to see offensive scoring goals. Hockey mode starting on Tuesday. Really challenging, very strong lean to the under, just slightly out of my price range. But if it takes a couple more cents, definitely we can get in on a half play there. Really don't know what's going to happen in this game. So we will see. Oh, that was an awkward sack Trevor Lawrence just took. Whew. Looked pretty awkward. Okay. Baltimore and Pittsburgh. Suma made a great tweet overnight, which was like, have not heard anyone make an argument for Pittsburgh yet, aside from like Mike Tomlin, home dog, and they always get up for these games and stuff like that. And honestly, it's challenging. Let's go through this one here. Baltimore, very positive injury regression. Ronnie Stanley playing. Morgan Moses is still out at right tackle, but on the receiving side of things, Rashad Bateman returning from his hamstring injury, Odell Beckham returning from his ankle injury. It's pretty much close to like the offense that they envisioned at the beginning of the year. Secondary, Marlon Humphrey back, Marcus Williams back, starting corner, starting safety. Huge positive injury news for the Baltimore Ravens. For the Pittsburgh Steelers, Kenny Pickett is going to start on the bad knee. Pretty much going to have a very tough time escaping pressure. Their left tackle, Dan Moore, is out. Does that matter? Probably not. Dan Moore stinks or has been horrible this year. Then you have James Daniels, your right guard, out with a groin injury. You still have Deontay Johnson on IR, which makes the receiving core so bad. Allen Robinson moves into like a number 2 role. He's horrendous. You have your tight end 1, Pat Freiermuth, looks like a multi-week injury with a hamstring. Cameron Hayward already out on the defensive line. DeMarvin Leal now out on the defensive line with a concussion. Alex Highsmith tweaks his groin in practice this week on Friday. Now he's expected to play, but it's bad. The market is now accounted for this stuff, right? Moved out a little bit further, but has it moved out enough? I think it's slightly short. I just don't know how the Steelers are going to jumpstart their offense. So this has to be, in my opinion, a game, if the Steelers are going to cover, that's similar to the Monday Night Football game they played with Cleveland, where their defense is generating scores because, first of all, they can't run the ball. Their offensive line's terrible. Their running backs have the second fewest yards before contact per rush this season. They've been hit at or behind the line of scrimmage on 50.6% of their carries this year. They can't stop the run. They have an injured quarterback throwing to arguably the worst skill position team right now with the talent that they have in the NFL. You can tell me all you want about the Ravens defense, and they faced the soft schedule of offenses. Well, they faced a soft schedule of offenses, and they've done well. They're top 3 success rate team. They're top 3 in EPA. They stopped the run really well ever since they acquired Roquan Smith. That's big. So now it's a matter of, can the Pittsburgh Steelers defense do enough to disrupt Lamar? A lot of people talk about these teams always play close games. The Pittsburgh Steelers always play close games. It's easy to play close games against these guys when you have Tyler Huntley starting games and Trace McSorley. Lamar hasn't played Pittsburgh in a long time. And in fact, he's had success against Pittsburgh in the past. There were 2 blowout games in favor of the Ravens. They're doing really well in the red zone this year, are the Baltimore Ravens. The Todd Monken offense is starting to work. Lamar Jackson's running the ball a lot more. There's a lot of ways that you could possibly work the Ravens into a play this week. You can potentially use them on the money line, which at minus 221, I think is a little bit short. I have this price closer to minus 240. You can use them with another team that you like. You could play the spread, but it's just not there for me at 4.5. At 4, it's a different story. 4.5 is different. But I don't see it. I know, like, as much as this has been the spot for the Steelers for so long, Tomlin as a dog, whatever, coming off embarrassing loss, like, I get it. And sometimes people just want to blindly play that stuff, but I need a reason to really like the matchup. And, like, I just think so many things have to go right for Pittsburgh today. Cincinnati, Arizona. Very close to on market here. So one thing about this game is the over has taken a pretty steady stream of money, as have the Cardinals this week. Now, granted, the move on the Cardinals was mostly early week. All the 4s and 3.5s got scooped up early week, and it's kind of just hung out on this 3 number ever since. Money on the over, which I understand in principle, not sure that I fully can get behind it. Cincy, big news, T. Higgins is out with a rib injury. They have a pretty deep wide receiving core. Still going to hurt them. T. Higgins is solid. Irv Smith's coming back from his hamstring injury as well. On the defensive side of the ball, the big one to watch out for is Chidobe Awuzie at cornerback. They're not deep at corner. He is a game-time decision. They have not announced whether he is in or out yet, but he went limited practice, did not practice Thursday, Friday. Gut inclination is that he's out. Trey Hendrickson went DNP on Friday. He's expected to play with a back injury, but something to keep an eye on. On the Arizona side of things, fairly healthy, with the exception of Will Hernandez on the offensive line. Wow, big downfield pass from Josh Allen. So, like, there's so much guesswork involved in this game, right? If it's purely a matter of playing metrics from this season, Arizona +3 is a play. If you're trying to time, like, when the Bengals are going to get it right, maybe this is the one. I don't know. I don't like to play those types of games. But the Cardinals offense has been playing well. The Bengals defense has not been playing well. The Bengals invite the run. They play a lot of light boxes. I heard Sharp Clark talking about this. Josh Dobbs, James Conner, these are guys that have had success on the ground this year. Josh Dobbs. And they can beat light boxes. That's the way the Bengals want to play. They can be beat on that. The Cardinals have 2.2 points per drive this season. That's 11th in the league. They've had the worst starting field position through 4 weeks, their own 24.5-yard line. To have 2.2 points per drive with the worst starting field position in the league, extremely solid. The Cardinals' offense is good. It's there. It's way better than anyone thought going into the year. Now it's just a matter of what do we think of the Bengals. Calf injury, Joe Burrow. Last week, 3 full practices, right? All the reports out of Cincinnati. Burrow's fine, this and that. Go watch the tape. Burrow's not fine. He literally can't even stand in the pocket. He can't turn from his left side to his right side. He has to take his first read and basically throw it at that every time. Now, how much does a week to prepare change that? It could. But his air yards per attempt this year is 6.1. That's the lowest in the NFL. It's the second lowest in the NFL. Lowest of his career. When Burrow's tried to throw the ball downfield, he has the NFL's worst EPA per dropback, worst passer rating on throws that are 10 plus yards downfield, according to True Media. On those same throws last year, he was ranked 4th and 3rd. So the guy is obviously hurt. And I just don't understand how the Bengals can be bet in any capacity until they show you something. Like it's Arizona or nothing. Now, the only thing I'll say in terms of opportunity for success here, if you look at the defensive lines that the Bengals have faced this year, Browns, Titans, even the Rams that slowed them down a little bit, these were all teams that could generate pressure up the middle through the interior. Arizona has not really been able to do that. So maybe there's some inkling of hope. But as Comet says in the chat, as long as Joe Burrow is playing on one leg, I'm not inclined to bet them. And I talked about this the exact same way with the Cincy Tennessee breakdown last week, right? Like, obviously, if Burrow is healthy, Cincy -2 on the road is a great bet. But do we know anything? No. All we seem to know on a weekly basis is that he practices in full and then never looks like himself. News note from Matthew. Chris Olave active, but apparently a bit gimpy. I don't know if we can say gimpy anymore. But he's limping around. Ankle, foot in pregame warmups. Good to note for those out there who want any unders on Olave props and stuff like that. All right, we're going to keep it moving. Apologies for the lack of plays. Again, you've seen me do this sometimes where I have plays on 3/4 of the games. You see me do it sometimes where I barely have any plays, and today just happens to be one of those. But I'll keep it moving, keep breaking it down, and we're going to Philadelphia and the Los Angeles Rams. Injury news on both sides. The big one for Philly, Fletcher Cox is out with a back injury. They do get Quez Watkins back, not a big deal. Cam Jurgens is out on the offensive line as well. Likely a multi-week injury. He was wearing a walking boot after last week's game with a foot injury. But everyone's going to focus on the Rams side of things. Cooper Kupp is back, not expected to be on a snap count with his hamstring injury. That's huge for the Rams. But we get into a situation here where we now have Matt Stafford, 3 full practices. I watched Matt Stafford in overtime against the Colts last week. The dude could barely walk with the hip injury he had. Could there be any remnants of that this week, especially with the defensive line from Philly who potentially gets after him? Possibly. Good news, Alaric Jackson expected to play, left tackle for the Rams. Bad news, Joe Noteboom, who's been playing the right guard position, is out. But the Kupp, lack of snap count makes this game unappealing to me. At one point or another, I wanted the Eagles in this game. I know the Eagles aren't dominated like they were last season, but I think that they're still very good. And like we hold them to this bar of last season. Their run offense is the best in the league right now. The Rams are just like an average run defense, so they can move the ball that way. If you look at the Rams defense, they've played banged up offensive lines. They played the Seahawks when they were missing both starting tackles. They played the Bengals, whose offensive line has been a disaster. They played the Colts that were missing their starting center, Ryan Kelly, and their left tackle last week as well. The Eagles' O-line is a different beast. So as much as the Rams' defense is held up, I'm less inclined to believe it's going to hold up in this spot. Jalen Hurts, 18th in EPA per play. But in each game he's played this season, he's gotten better. 2 games in a row, 50+% success rate. Who's covering A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith? The Rams' corners just aren't very good. Pressure rate, Rams defense, bottom 3 in the NFL. I don't see the path to success for the Rams to generate stops, whereas I do see the path for the Eagles. Now, the Eagles secondary struggled, but their defense is going to generate enough pressure to get some disruptions. Tough game. Still considering Philly here in some capacity. In fact, I'm going to do something that's a little bit unusual, but I'm going to go with Philly. And I'm going to go with, let me bring it back up here, the Baltimore Ravens. 2 road favorites. What could go wrong? And I'm going to play these in a money line parlay. Minus 221, minus 196. I'm going to play this for, it's plus 119 odds. I'm going to go for $75 on this one. I think that there's small edges on both of these. I rarely do this, but I think it's the best way to play it. So we're in for play number 2. Let's move it on. Jets and Broncos. Oh, by the way, great point from Scott. SoFi will be about 40% Eagle fans. That might be an understatement because SoFi is always, we've seen the home team, whether it's Matt Stafford or Justin Herbert, have to use silent counts at home. Why not play it straight? EV is EV. I actually have a larger edge on the money line in both of these games than I do the spread. So that's why. In fact, I don't think the spread is playable. So when you look at the distribution of outcomes, I think that there's a lot of scenarios where the Eagles and Ravens win by exactly 3 or exactly 4, basically, is what it comes down to. But I think that there's a lot of scenarios where they win. Not that the distribution for every game is not always going to be the exact same. Oh, just fire money line both bets. You could do that as well. Absolutely could do that as well. I just don't want to make it, in all honesty, Raymond, I don't want to do that to make it seem like I'm trying to like pad a record in any way. But absolutely, totally doable. And for a lot of people out there, they just don't like to play the big money lines as well. Jets and Denver. Sorry, I jumped on you pretty quick there, but I didn't mean to. Big third down conversion there for the Jags. Jets. Oh my goodness. We have another injury on the Bills defense. The Bills defense already decimated. They lose Matt Milano today. Taron Johnson looks like he's holding his knee and he's in distress. Very tough. Very tough. Okay. Jets kind of got going unnoticed this week. At least I haven't heard it talked about a lot. Maybe other people have noticed it. But the Jets are missing DJ Reed and Brandon Eccles in their secondary today. 2 of their top 4 corners. I don't want to, it technically is a cluster corner injury. It's not dire, but something to keep an eye on. DJ Reed, Brandon Eccles out. Denver. They get some returning players on defense. Baron Browning is off the PUP list, but he's out. I've seen some people say that he's playing. I don't think he's playing today. He has the knee injury. I could be wrong, but I'm almost certain I'm right. Frank Clark returning from a hip injury. Frank Clark has been average for years. Mike Purcell will be in on the defensive line. They get Justin Simmons back from a hip injury. That's the big one for them. Now, Zach Wilson looked really good last week. Do we use the 1-game sample or his whole career where he's been trash? Well, I'm not going to say use the 1-game sample, but if we do break down Zach Wilson's career, he's been good against bad defenses, or at least serviceable against bad defenses. You look at when he's had time to throw, he's been a lot better. The Jets so far this year, if I'm going to make a defense of Zach Wilson, who could still honestly be a complete tire fire, that's a possibility. But they've played the Buffalo defense, the New England defense, the KC defense, the Dallas defense. All 4 of those teams, top 12 EPA defenses. Those teams are very good against the pass as well. This is a different story. Yes, you get some returning Denver starters, but this defense is terrible. They cannot generate pressure. Randy Gregory gone now too. Statistically speaking, they're not quite as bad as the Bears, but they're horrible. They've allowed a passer rating of 133.4 this season. That's the second worst rating through 4 games of the season all time. They can't defend the deep ball. They've given up 5 touchdown passes of 20 or more yards. They don't generate pressure. If there was ever an opportunity for Zach Wilson to succeed again, it's this one, back to back. This game in particular, no edge on the side, edge on the total of 0.71% on the over. That's a smaller margin than I typically play on this show. I usually go to 1%. So it is a small edge on the over at the current Pinnacle price, but a little bit smaller than I think is worth giving out. On the other side of things, I think the Jets defense is a little bit overrated. Everybody watched that first game against Buffalo this year, and since then, they just have not performed at an elite level, plain and simple. They've performed good at times, good for periods, but not at an elite level. 2 cornerback injuries. Denver can throw the ball. They have this year. It's not like Russell Wilson is Russell Wilson of old. He definitely isn't. But this is, in my opinion, a game where we might sneakily see some points. Next game, KC, Minnesota. Okay, market has just been one-way Minnesota action this week. I want to talk about that a little bit. For those who follow my content over the course of the week, you know that I bet Minnesota very early. I actually think at this point, there's no chance you can bet Minnesota at this price. And you can make an argument that KC is playable. Now, with that said, KC -3 in the -115 range would be a buy point. I don't think we're going to get there. I just think that Minnesota is actually very underrated at this point. Injury reports not really playing an issue in this game. For the Vikings, it's only Marcus Davenport, and he got a full practice on Friday with the ankle injury. He's going to play. Maybe keep an eye out for Nick Bolton for the Chiefs, but that's not going to affect things massively one way or another. The Vikings, let me caveat this. The Vikings have a very good offense if they can hold on to the ball. I know it's been a problem, but at some point, this will correct itself. They have an NFL high 11 turnovers. Alec Lewis from The Athletic this week did a breakdown on the Vikings offense. If you take out the drives that didn't end in a turnover, they're fourth in touchdown rate. They're seventh in points per drive. Even on drives that ended in a turnover, they averaged 36 yards per drive, third most in the NFL. We've gone like full circle with the Vikings, right? Last year, it was this team is a joke. They keep winning these close games. By the way, the fact that they're getting 3.5 points or whatever, 4 earlier in the week, 4.5, and you need them to play a close game, that's also appealing. Now, I like the Vikings' opportunity for success. I do. They're just going to move the ball, I think, consistently. Not consistently, but they'll move the ball on everyone. KC's offense, I don't know what to make of this right now. This is obviously a big possibility for a get-right game like they had with the Bears a few weeks ago. But 3 of 4 games this year, the offense just hasn't looked good. Just hasn't. They have success because they do well on high leverage plays. Mahomes can use his legs, can evade tackles. But it basically has come down to cover Travis Kelce, let someone else beat you, and they have not figured that out yet. The issue I have with Minnesota here, and why at this point I could only recommend KC, is that there's one thing that everyone in the world knows not to do against the Kansas City Chiefs. Blitz Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes creates so much value in his elusiveness and his ability to evade a sack, get the ball out, do something, make a play. I don't know that Brian Flores is capable of not blitzing. They send an absurd amount of pressure. They've sent a blitz on 57% of dropbacks this season. That's number 1 in the NFL. They want to go this route. I think that's going to be a challenge. So it'll be very interesting to see what they're doing early on in this game. Another one that I have also marked for live betting purposes, just based off of how Minnesota is playing this game defensively to start. Final game. You're watching right now. Pull myself back up big screen. You're going to see this Dallas Cowboys symbol. Of the 327 of you who are in the stream, 330 of you, probably at least 300 of you know that I'm a Dallas Cowboys fan and you've been here before. But for the ones that don't, I am a Dallas Cowboys fan. I've done these streams for a half decade now. And for those who've watched, you know that I can bet on Dallas or I can bet against Dallas. I like to remain impartial on these. I like the Dallas Cowboys tonight on Sunday Night Football. Plus 3.5, minus 110. Best price. One of the best prices out there on the Dallas Cowboys. 1.47% edge. It's not huge, but we're going to go $75 base unit on the Dallas Cowboys in this game. Think both these teams are really good, honestly. I do. We can talk ad nauseum about the past matchups between them, how those have gone. It's not apples to apples. You look at like the playoff game last year where San Fran won 19-12. Tony Pollard got knocked out in the second quarter of that game. Dak Prescott threw a red zone interception. From a pure expected points point of view, it was a very even game. Cowboys offensive line this year was in shambles, fully healthy today. Tyron Smith returning from a knee injury, starting offensive line that they had at the beginning of the year. Aside from Trayvon Diggs, pretty good injury report for Dallas. For San Fran, aside from Elijah Mitchell, they get Juwan Jennings back. It's basically the teams, with the exception of Trayvon Diggs, as we expected going into the year. Where I think Dallas can have success, the Niners defense has not stopped the run well this year. They're 28th in EPA allowed on the ground. If you strip out garbage time, because some people have said to me, well, yeah, they've had a lot of leads. Other teams just end up running the ball to try to get out of the game. which I honestly don't buy that either, but they're 26th in EPA, stopping the run in non-garbage time. They're 18th in adjusted line yards allowed. They've been pushed around at the line of scrimmage. This is kind of what Dallas needs to make it work. If you look at the Cowboys this year, they have sucked in the red zone. Now, there could be obvious reasons for that, right? Could be obvious reasons for that. You have Kellen Moore gone with the Chargers now. And you have a combination of the brain power of Mike McCarthy and Brian Schottenheimer. That's going to have an impact, tangible impact. Some people say, okay, Ezekiel Elliott gone. You no longer have the workhorse back in the red zone. Okay. Maybe I buy that a little bit. He's a tough runner. But ultimately, they've gone from being the first, number 1 red zone team in the league last year to number 30. And I don't think that number 30 is going to continue. I would be very surprised if the Cowboys end as a bottom 10 red zone offense this year, despite the fact that they can't score in the red zone. They've won 3 games by 20 or more points. They've won 2 games by 35 or more points. Now, 49ers, I think, can have some success as well. I do. I know that the talk about the pressure and Brock Purdy, if you look at like when Brock Purdy looks somewhat normal as a quarterback, it's when he's facing pressure. The Cowboys' pressure numbers are absurd. They've pressured opponent dropbacks 55% of the time this year. That's 12 percentage points better than any other team in the league. The difference between number 1, who is Dallas, and number 2, who is Green Bay right now, in terms of pressure rate, is the same as the difference between number 2 and number 27 in the league, for perspective. So there's an opportunity there for the Dallas defense to get home. But San Fran is so good at scheming guys open. The secondary that's facing injuries, I don't think that we're going to completely shut down the 49ers team. But I do think that Dallas getting the hook here is extremely appealing. Sergio says 331 watching. Let's smash that thumbs up for the pizza buffet. Please do so. Down below, smash that like button. If you're not subscribed to Forward Progress, make sure you do subscribe to Forward Progress. Got tons going on. I'm back here tonight, 8 p.m. Eastern time with Clive Bixby. For those that don't know, it's a pretty damn good show to watch if you want to bet early in the week. People are always messaging me. Oh, how do I know what to bet early? How do I know how to get closing line value to beat line moves? Well, me and Clive, 2 guys that understand the market, how people typically want to bet, we'll find you some value. 8 p.m. Eastern time. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and you'll get alerted when we go live. We have tons of content throughout the course of the week as well. Recapping plays, it's a light day today. It's a light day. Put together a money line parlay, Philly and Baltimore. Played the over in the Giants-Miami game. Alternatively, you could just play the team total over 30.5 on Miami. Play Dallas plus 3.5. That's it. Closest that I've come to other games is I pull up the full screen right here and go through it. Houston, small edge, not within the range where I'd play it. Carolina, Detroit is pretty much a complete pass at these market numbers. Tennessee and Indy, small edge on Indy, nothing to really do here in my opinion. Giants and Miami, played the over, nothing with the spread. New Orleans, New England, pretty heavy lean to the under in this game. I would need, it looks like plus 104 to bet at this price, but pretty heavy lean towards under in Saints Patriots. Ravens Steelers, said my piece on that one. We use the Ravens money line in a parlay. Bengals Cardinals, I can only look at the Cardinals. Eagles Rams, Eagles are nothing for me. Use the Eagles in the money line parlay as well. Total a little bit low, but it's been bet up a bit. The opener was 46.5. We're up to 50 now. I think that there's not much left to extract from that. Over Jets and Broncos, small lean towards the over. No real opinion on the side. KC, Minnesota, small lean to the Chiefs right now. No real opinion on the total. And then Dallas on Sunday Night Football. Monday Night Football, really quickly. Injury report, I still need to see. But it's basically going to be Packers or nothing for me in this game. I'm just not a fan of the Raiders at all. I get that they're getting Jimmy Garoppolo back, but potentially Devontae Adams, like really, really dealing with a bad shoulder injury right now. Most receivers would be sitting out this game. He's a trooper, so he'll probably play. But that matters, as do the injuries on the Packers defense and who they're getting back in this game. So it's Packers or nothing, but I have not bet it yet. I have not decided what I'm going to do with it until tomorrow. If you do want to join me tomorrow night for this game, there's another YouTube channel, The Hammer HQ. Search it in YouTube. You can join me for the game tomorrow night. I watch along. I have guests over the course of the night. Even if it's a boring game, we find a way to make conversation. I'll stick around and answer a few questions before we go here. Favorite teaser leg? Good question. Obviously, I'm very dedicated to the Wong style teaser, getting through 3 and 7. Do I trust these teams though? Like, do I trust the Jets in a teaser? It's a low total. I should, but do I want to put Zach Wilson in a teaser? No. Saints. Do the Patriots have the ability to blow a team out? I don't know. Saints seem somewhat okay, as do the Colts at home. Like, what's the Tennessee Titans' ability to blow out a team on the road? Those are probably the best ones. Houston, I can see scenarios in which they lose by margin, but that's not bad either. There's interesting splits on the Dolphins because they've been by far the best first half team in the entire league. I don't really run things at a first half level, or at least I do, but I don't have a quick, easy output for it. So it's hard for me to say, but I don't mind either of those. Is Clive Bixby a Modern Family reference? It sure is. Any props I like today? I played a ton, honestly. It's a pretty heavy props board. I just want to see what's available. I do like, as a long shot, anytime touchdown score, Ryan Tannehill. Ryan Tannehill actually has a lot of rushing touchdowns in his career, and they do run a lot of bootleg stuff with him around the goal line. I think the Colts are going to be pretty fixated on Derrick Henry today. So I don't mind Ryan Tannehill in a anytime touchdown capacity. What else do we got here that I think is still worth giving out? I played Anthony Richardson over on passing yards in that same game, which I thought was a low number with the amount that they are going to try to attack the Tennessee defense altogether. I played Daniel Jones anytime touchdown score at plus 360. More of a hunch than anything, but I do think he's going to have to be active with his feet, and they might prioritize that. Allen, what a heave that was. Intercepted. Wow. Defender took that right away. Played Zach Ertz in the touchdown market at plus 365. I played Trenton Irwin in the touchdown market for the Cincinnati Bengals. I played KJ Osborne in the touchdown market for Minnesota. And that's pretty much it in terms of stuff that's still available. Price for Tanny. Let's see what I played it at and what I made it. But it was a pretty substantial edge for me. I played Tannehill at plus 700. And I made it like plus 485 fair value for those that want it. Clev took Rashad Bateman, 23-1 first TD. He's been hot on the first TD scores. Hard to argue against anything that he's doing right now in the first TD market. Hit another one today. So I might actually tail on that one. Appreciate everyone who joined me. I'm going to wrap this up. Once again, on the way out at the door, just make sure you smash that like button down below. It goes a long way in helping us grow up our channel. Make sure you check out Pinnacle if you're in Ontario. You must be 19 plus, but line shopping, very important. And if you do sign up to Pinnacle, use code HAMMER. It does support the show. I'm back here tonight 8 p.m. Eastern time. I actually have way more bets than it seems today, but the market, for first time this year, I actually got great closing line value. So we'll see if that ends up turning into wins or losses today. But for those out there, as long as you're not against me, good luck with your plays today. If you're celebrating Thanksgiving in Canada, happy Thanksgiving. I'm back tonight, 8 p.m. Eastern time. We'll catch you there. This has been Forward Progress, the pizza buffet here on the Forward Progress YouTube channel, part of the Hammer Betting Network, presented by Pinnacle Sportsbook. Good luck with your bets today, people.